Good morning, guys. In our last video, we did a tour of the west bank of the Nile River, and today we're doing a tour of the east bank. So our Airbnb has set up a tour guide, a private tour guide for us, and they are going to be picking us up again here in just a couple of minutes to take us over to the west side of the Nile River.
It's the same tour guide that took us last time, and he was amazing, so we're really excited about that. And the itinerary for today is going to see Luxor Temple, Karnak, and the Luxor Museum. And he might throw in some other things in there too. We're not sure, but really excited about that. This stuff is supposed to be really amazing, so we're so excited.
And this will be our last day touring here in Egypt, so we're going to try to soak it up before we head on to our next country. So today our first stop is Karnak Temple, which is this huge 63-acre temple complex in Luxor. And we learned that Luxor was the religious capital of Egypt before it became the official capital as well in Egyptian times.
And it's right on the Nile, and so there used to be a canal that would send things from the Nile over here, and there's even this little lake that has tunnels that still are connected to the Nile to keep the water level like at a consistent level. So that's pretty cool.
So we're gonna walk around here and explore this crazy, huge place, and then just see all of the obelisks, sphinxes, columns, everything that it has, because it has so much and it's so huge.
It's amazing. There are some sphinxes lining the walkway, and what we learned is that the sphinxes that have the ram's head represent the god Amun-Ra, and different animal heads on the sphinxes represent different gods. But then if it has a human head, that represents a king, like the sphinx by the Giza pyramids.
It feels like I can't hold on.
Don't give me any idea of things that's broken by time.
So this obelisk is one solid piece of granite. It is 300 something tons. That is huge, and it's supposed to be the largest obelisk from this period, maybe in the world.
The addition that's from inside to outside. So we are going from like that. So we choose the 30th dynasty, and then we are going to meet the 19th dynasty, and then we're going to meet 18th dynasty until you.
We learned that this whole area is supposed to be modeled after a papyrus field, and so even there's just so much detail about that. Like our guide was showing us that at the very tops there are some that look like they're a closed papyrus, and then some that look open, like you would see in a field. And so that was really interesting.
And the open ones are all along the walkway where light would actually come through, because they knew that light gave life to those plants. And so all of the ones that were open were actually being hit by light, and all the ones that are closed are actually dark. And then the base of them are all undulating, and some are higher, some are lower, because these plants grew next to the Nile, and the Nile, sometimes the water would come up to them, and there'd be waves and ripples in the water, and they wanted to replicate that in the bases. So really like detailed oriented everything here.
Very artistic, beautiful.
And there are literally over 160, I think, columns on this whole room area. So it is just incredible. And these are huge, massive columns. It's hard to wrap your head around this, like what it looked like, when they actually did it. It's amazing.
Yeah, really cool. I'm glad we got to come here. So you can see how high the ground level was at one point before they excavated a whole lot more of this, because you can see graffiti way up high on some of the columns and all the different stone structures here. And so we saw a lot from the 1800s. So that's really cool that there were people here hundreds of years ago exploring like we are today.
So the far west wall was actually never completed. It was one of the last things that the ancient Egyptians ever actually did. And so there's still a mud brick ramp going up to one of the walls, and that's the only evidence of how they built what they built, and it kind of gives evidence of maybe how they did the pyramids too. But it's just this old like ramp that is completely removable. It's not stone or anything, so they left it here so that we can kind of see that and see that they built from the bottom up, and they built the ramp up and up. And then when they did the hieroglyphics, they carved at the top, and then they took the ramp down, and then were able to do the hieroglyphics at the bottom. So really neat part of history and getting to see it. Yeah, really neat place. So this site was crazy impressive, really amazing and huge. We went a little bit over our time to explore it a little bit. Our guide brings us out here and he tells us all the history, and then he goes back to his van, and then we get to explore it privately. And so we took our time here, but it's time to go ahead and head on to our next site. But this place is incredible. You could really spend much more time here, especially if the heat allows it.
And I wish we would have gotten here earlier, because it's definitely getting more and more crowded the longer we've been here. But I think if you come early, there wouldn't be as many people and it wouldn't be as hot.
And not throwing any shade at our tour guide, but they were half an hour late, so. So now we're at the Luxor Temple, and this leads directly to Karnak by a road that's actually partially underground, so they're trying to excavate and make it full again. But they would do a religious ceremony there where they would walk from here all the way straight to Karnak. But it's basically a straight shot, not a whole lot of corridors like Karnak was, but it's really large and really beautiful. There's a lot of Roman history here too, and a lot of, there's depictions of Alexander the Great and all kinds of things like that. Just a lot of culmination of a lot of different histories. And then there's also a 12th century mosque here that was built to show Muslims that they were allowed to live amongst these types of old ruins because they didn't want to live amongst these other religions. So they're trying to show that it was okay. So it's really an amazing site with all kinds of different history and religions and just people groups that just came through these halls throughout human history, and here we are now getting to see it. It's really incredible getting to experience this site.
So this is that road that leads all the way from the Luxor Temple to Karnak, and it is lined completely all the way with these sphinxes, and these all have human heads, so they signify the king. But you can see back here that it's not completely excavated, like there's still some buildings in the way, and so our guide said the long-term plan is to completely unearth all of these sphinxes and complete that road all the way back to Karnak. So when the Romans took over Egypt, they didn't want them to worship their gods anymore, so they just wanted them to worship the emperor. So they blocked the Holy of Holies over here, and they also plastered over a lot of their religious pictures, and they put Roman pictures up there. And so that's just really interesting. Those are still there. You can see the Roman figures and just that Roman era art.
So up above us we have the opened papyrus columns again, which shows that this was not under any kind of ceiling. It was all open to the light. And then at the end of this hallway, we actually will get to the 12th century mosque, which shows that they could worship here. And then in the different layers, you can also see that there used to be Christians here, but then the Romans didn't want the Christians to worship their god, and so they had to hide underneath it in the different temples and the different tombs of Egyptians so that they could still worship. And then also we come upon Tutankhamun Statue, which is right here next to his wife. There's just so much symbolism too to everything here. Like even underneath the thrones that they have depictions of the people that are underneath the Egyptian empire. So they have like Syrians and then other Africans represented by their different facial features. and then just what they are wearing too, they can tell that. And then all the statues, they either have like 1 foot forward, which we learned is the life pose. There's the ones that have the arms crossed, which is the death pose. And then you also have the people sitting on their thrones, which of course is ruling. But just so much imagery depicting history and symbolism. It's just really cool seeing how they represent who they ruled and then where they ruled and then who they defeated in all these little bitty artistic ways, I guess.
So we can see how dramatically the ground level has changed over the years, because that is the original entrance to this mosque, way up there.
You can also see a lot of parts of the temple where faces have been chiseled out of the different things, and that's where they're trying to remove the gods of old, where they don't want worship anymore. They've gone through and tried to chisel out the faces to try to cover that up. So it's cool to see that too, seeing the history that was trying to be removed by other historical figures, and then the ones that actually remained are pretty incredible, but really neat. So one thing we haven't mentioned yet, if you didn't notice, is the West Bank was all tombs and burial grounds, and the east side is all temples. And that's because the Egyptians believed that since the sun rose on the east, that the east side of the Nile was the side of life. And so they lived on this side and they had the temples and worship on this side, and then the other side was the death side. And so they would bury the dead over there. So they would take a ship across to the west side where the sun set, and that's how they represented life and death. So we're on the life side right now, on the east side, and the other side was the death side where we were yesterday. So we've gone from death to life, I guess, in the last 2 days, but in an interesting perspective, and it shows the importance of the Nile River. So now we're gonna get to do something that Aubrey has really been looking forward to, which is take a ferry across the Nile. We took about 40 minutes to get over here, drive all the way down to the bridge and across, but this should only take about 5 minutes to get it straight across to our hotel. So we're excited to finally be on the Nile for the first time. Watch your head there.
My goal is to actually get on the Nile, and we're on the Nile River. This is amazing, and it smells like a lake from back home, and it's really making us want to just jump in and swim. They said there's no more crocodiles or hippos, so I guess we could.
Yeah, I thought it would smell a lot gross.
Yeah,
like it's really green,
no,
so it looks like it'd be gross, but it's not.
It smells like home.
You really want to swim.
Yeah.
Yes, I can do it. Got it?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Doesn't smell as good right here. Watch the poop. But that was fun. That was a goal. And now, it's a little smelly right here. Whew. Now we're gonna go shower. And this was a fun day. This was good. Our last Egypt thing. So fun.
All right, we're back. So later tonight, we're gonna go back and have our feast again that we have upstairs with a private chef. And so until then, we're just gonna relax for a little while, try to shower off, get all of the grossness off of us, because it is so hot here. So we're gonna, just rest for a few hours, and then once they call us up for dinner, we're gonna go up there and try to eat as much of the feast as we can, because it is so much food every single time, and so much for that we're bringing back food for like other meals, so we're not actually having to pay for too many meals up there, because we're bringing back foils after foil. I'll actually show you in the fridge. We have so much food stocked up in here that I don't think we're going to have to eat it all tomorrow on our last day when we were just chilling here. Just look at that. Every shelf has plates with foil. He feeds us so much. So one more meal up there, and then I think we'll be good to just eat the leftovers all day tomorrow. But anyways, we're gonna rest for a little bit, take our showers, and then we'll head upstairs.
came back and relaxed for a little bit because we were exhausted from a full day of walking around. But now we are upstairs on the rooftop and we are eating our dinner. And we have a little bit of everything here. We have some beef, some potatoes, some different vegetable dishes, and rice and bread, and it all looks amazing. And soup. It's always a feast. It's so good all the time too. So we're gonna dig in. We're starving.
Been incredible, and we think the dishes have been pretty traditional Egyptian meals. We really don't know for sure exactly what Egyptian food is, but the beef on this one is like rolled ground beef, kind of like a sausage, and so it's super good. And then the vegetables are kind of like a pico de gallo salsa. I've never had yellow rice, really good. The potatoes are like in a sauce that look orange, almost like I guess like a curry or something like that. It looks like a sweet potato, but you can rub the sauce off and it looks like it's just a regular potato. The bread has been consistent that we've had every time. It's just like a wholemeal bread, but super, super good. Overall, the meals have just been outstanding, really good. We've had the best falafel we've ever had in our lives here. So yeah, we've really, really enjoyed the Egyptian food. And we've been introduced to a ton of new foods too, like stuff that we've never been used to. And we've really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed just different flavors. I don't know. So again, as usual, we came back with tons of leftovers. So our fridge is completely full, which is a great thing because today was our last day of exploring Egypt. And then tomorrow we will have one kind of down day where we're going to relax and then try to get prepared for our travel day the very next day. And so we have a fridge full of food that will keep us not going hungry all day tomorrow.
Yes, we'll have a ton. So much food. But our next place we're going is Jordan, and we're really excited about that. But like Donnie said, today was our last day really exploring Egypt. And a lot of people have been asking us if we felt safe here in Egypt. And our answer is yes, but there's like a little bit of a caveat. Yes, but it's not quite what we expected. I think it's a lot busier and kind of Cairo was kind of chaotic feeling with people driving around all over the place and pedestrians just kind of walking through the street, which we weren't really expecting that. And then also just lots of people trying to come up to you and sell you things. And even people that would come up to us and try to like help us, even if I don't think we looked lost, but just try to help us. And I think there was one guy that genuinely helped us, but most of the time they were helping us and trying to get us to go somewhere so they could sell us something. So just a lot more aggressively selling than we've ever experienced.
Yeah, not going to you to be unsafe or do anything. Yeah. It was just sometimes a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah, overwhelming.
And then also, unfortunately, like it really stinks that it happened while we were here, but while we were here yesterday, they had an attack at the Giza pyramids that hit a tour bus. Nobody was killed. There was injuries, but that did kind of make us a little bit more on edge for our last 2 days that we were here, which is really unfortunate. Mm-hmm. And there's also a pretty large military and police presence everywhere. There's like police checkpoints all over the place, even here in Luxor. That can just be a little bit, again, just overwhelming.
Kind of jarring.
Even though you know they're just there for your safety, is what the purpose is supposed to be. So. And
a lot of the police have like talked to us when we've gone up to the places, and like they're really nice. Like they genuinely are there to help, but they have their big machine guns, so it's a little scary when you first see them.
So overall, we're not walking around concerned for our safety, like things are going to happen. It's mostly just a little bit on edge of just tons of people coming up and talking to you and trying to sell you stuff and like getting in your way, like not letting you walk by because they're just wanting to try to sell you stuff. Yeah. And so you're just kind of like, I don't know, like your head's a little bit on the swivel, just trying to almost avoid people like that if you can. And then also just after the attack, that made us a little bit more on edge. So I do think we felt safe for for the most of the time that we were here, but it's just not what we expected. It's been really interesting.
Yeah, but I think having tours has made the experience better because they've been able to guide us and lead us, and we haven't felt as alone, and we've just felt a little more under their guidance and their wing whenever we have tours. So I would recommend that for sure.
Yeah, they're kind of little shields too.
Yeah, that's been good.
If people see you walking around the local, they don't really come up and sell you as much.
Yeah,
So.
they'll back off a little more.
So anyways, that has been our Egyptian experience. We are now going to be heading on to another country, which we're super excited about. So we hope that you enjoyed these videos and you enjoyed seeing Egypt. If you did, please go ahead and hit that like button and make sure that you subscribe so you can keep up with more adventures because we'd love to have you travel with us.
Good night.